What is this? Live call-in? Live question and answer.
Yeah. Today our guest is Tania Gregorian. Tania, please represent yourself.
Hello everybody, let's just get into it. My name's Tania. I'm a repat. We've been on this journey for several years, but we finally made the move last June. So, I should say June of 2018. No, June of 2017. Ooh, time flies when you're having fun. My husband and I moved here for good with our two kids. And we're very, very happy. We're very happy with the decision that we've made. And it's, we have challenges, we have ups and downs, but there are absolute benefits and advantages to any of the challenges or drawbacks that we've faced over the past year and a half. So if you have questions, which we already have some questions here, which is very exciting, we'll get into it. But keep it coming if you do have questions, and Rima and I will try to entertain those questions as much as we can in the hour that we have together. And should we start?
Yeah, just we collected some questions that we gathered from the postings in different groups and different pages. So we have a few questions that are both general, about education, about health insurance, healthcare. So Tania, just start with the general one.
The first question is, how did you manage to adapt to a small village after living in a city as large as LA? So let me give a little bit of history to this question before I answer it, because it was in the bio, but just in case you didn't catch it. So we are from Los Angeles. I was born and raised in Glendale, California. So from Glendale, California, we ended up going to Saudi Arabia for a couple of years to teach there. And then from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, we made our way to Armenia. We don't currently live in Yerevan, and we don't plan to. We're actually, part of this journey for us was to buy land and to build a home outside of Yerevan, and which we were very successfully able to do in a small village outside of Yerevan called Mayakovsky. It's in the Kotayk province. There's about 2,000 people that live in that village. It's a lovely little village. It's about 25 minutes outside of downtown Yerevan. We do, on a daily basis, usually come down to the city, maybe not necessarily Gentron, to like the downtown center, but we do our daily if we have things to buy, if we have things to do, we do come to Yerevan quite often. So we're not entirely cut off from that, but we do have our rural life established now. We have our own garden, we're able to sustain our own vegetables. The kids are able to play in a yard, we have fresh air, we have a beautiful view of Arakats and Hadis and the Gerama mountain range, and Ararat, of course. And we have which is a lovely home, which we decided that we wanted to do outside of Yerevan. And adapting to that, to be honest, hasn't been all that difficult, because we kind of set everything up to our standards of living. And so we were luckily able to do that in a village which is not that far away from Yerevan. So if we do need anything, we are able to come and go comfortably. But I do buy my milk and my cheese and my yogurt from the village. I do a lot of shopping in the village as well. Like if I need eggs from my neighbor, I just call her and she brings over a dozen eggs and we have coffee together. And that's really a very sweet part of life in Armenia, which I don't think I could have been able to have anywhere else. There is a school in the village. There is an infirmary, like a pharmacy, a small clinic. So we do have communication, and we do a lot of kind of go back and forth with the villagers. I'm not shut off from that at all. I mingle with them, I talk to them, they come over, I go over, their kids come and play at my house, my kids go and play at their house. and I feel very fortunate to be able to have that. And I don't think I would be able to have that if I were in in Yerevan, which right now is just this metropolitan hubbub of a city. So
is it to find the land? Tell us about the process, because
so the process of actually finding where we wanted to live, like we knew that this is what we wanted to do, but the process of finding where we're gonna be, it took several weeks. We basically kind of opened up a map and found obviously Yerevan, and then we went 20 kilometers in every direction.
Okay, I see.
And then we started exploring, and we started going around, and we started visiting different villages and looking at different plots of land that were for sale, that were in our budget, of course. And then we looked at which plots of land had municipal services and which plots of land didn't, which plots of land were agricultural, which plots of land we could build on, like to build a residential property on. We learned a lot during this process, and it was actually kind of fun because I also geographically kind of had an idea of what this part of Armenia was kind of all about. I really didn't know the topography very well.
Yeah.
And so I got a good idea of that. And we're really happy with where we are, and we're actually very close to Gervej Zorahbiur, which a lot of people know that, but they don't really know Mayakovsky, which is nice.
Yeah.
So
you built your house first. How long did it take you to build?
So this is a question that a lot of people ask us, and I think because we were slowly saving up to build. So like we would return to Saudi Arabia, we would save up, and then we'd come back and we would build, and we would return and then save up and come back and build. And so it took us about 6.5 years to do that.
So you planned it. So,
but every year we did little by little. But we had such a pleasant experience. Had we had the lump sum from the beginning, it probably would have taken us from beginning to end maybe between 6 to 9 months. If we were here, if we were on top of it and we were doing it all ourselves and just present, that's probably how long it would have taken us. We didn't have any problems. We were very fortunate. We actually learned so much from it. I recommend, if you're interested in this, I definitely recommend doing it. Consider living outside of Yerevan. There's a lot out there, and you could have a very sweet and a very fulfilling life even outside of the city. So I definitely recommend it if anybody's interested.
Yep. Next question. We have a lot of comments and also stories. So we have.
What should we do for the next question?
I will just read this one and then we can continue. So Lilith Khachaturian says, «Ողջունում եմ նախաձեռնությունը, գործերին հաջողություն».
Շնորհակալ եմ.
You can just read. We have this message from Aline.
Aline Hajibalian Pilavjan.
Yeah.
Hello, Tania. What a great story you have. I hope you were happy in Yerevan. Yes. Which village do you live in? I mentioned Mayakovsky. My husband and I always talk about moving to Yerevan. Moving to another country with 3 kids is a challenge. It is, especially when it comes to their education. How old are your kids? What school do they go to? I prefer my kids to be English educated, since English is the official language worldwide. Which schools in Yerevan teach English and are accredited worldwide? And thanks for your help. So this question is a multi-part question, and I will answer kind of one by one. First of all, Aline, gosh, I'm so happy to hear that you're considering this move, and I hope that one day you guys do make that decision. I have to say that the hardest part about repatriating is the decision itself. Everything else after that falls into place. There's so much support out there. There's so many resources out there now. We are so lucky to be living today in this Armenia, to be able to have all of these resources and all of this support. And things are so easy now. Whereas I can imagine like 30, 40, 50 years ago, people who considered in the diaspora community to repatriate to Armenia, I know that it would have been a challenge for them, a great challenge. And we are so far from that today. So again, the first initial decision that you make to make the move is going to be the hardest one and the only hard one that you're ever going to have. So please trust me when I say that. Thereafter, of course you want your kids to have a good life, and of course you don't want your kids to miss out on anything. And I personally think that it's actually the opposite. I think that you're going to be able to give your kids so much more by moving to Armenia. I think that they actually might miss out on a lot of stuff by being away from their homeland. This is where they're going to get strength. This is where they're going to get fulfilled. When I'm not just being emotional when I say, when you hear Armenian on the streets, when you go to a concert and you're listening to Armenian music, and you go to a tatron and you have this old, folk tale being played in front of you, that it's all sweet. Yes, it is all sweet, but it's so fulfilling to be in that kind of an environment, and for your kids to not have to explain to anyone or anybody about who they are or where they come from. And I am just very, I don't know, I believe that you would actually be able to, your kids would greatly benefit by being raised here, by going to school here. 3 kids, that's incredible. Aswats Bahi. But as far as their education goes, again, on the contrary, don't worry about that. If anything, the education, in my opinion, is better here. They're learning chess, robotics, technology, information systems from 2nd grade. And they're learning languages from 2nd grade onwards. And so this is something that we don't have, well, at least I know we didn't have in LA. Growing up there, and I think there's my daughter is in 3rd grade now, and my younger one is only a year and a half old. So from the experience I've had with my daughter, I feel like she has grown leaps and bounds by being here and by having the subjects that she has here. So I'm not at all worried about that. She does. We do help her with English. Obviously, I have a background in teaching English, so does my husband. But she also learns English in school, and she's doing just fine with that, and so are her classmates. Yes, the core subjects are taught in Armenian, which again I think is a benefit. We're in Armenia. She's learning math in Armenian, and she's learning science in Armenian, and I think that's kind of cool. She will have the English language abilities, as she grows. But yeah, right now she has those core subjects in English, and I think that is an advantage, and I think it's going to be an advantage for her growing up. And we're here, and I think that there's something sweet about that as well. As far as the schools go, I did a lot of research on this when we were trying to decide where she's going to go to school. And so we have the public school system. Yeah. And then we have the private school system. And within the private school system, there are ranges. So there are medium range private schools, and then there are the high-end kind of private schools. And so she's kind of in a low to medium range private school. So she, like I said, is learning English, but she also is learning Russian, and she's also learning Armenian, and she's learning all of her core subjects in Armenian. But I'm very pleased with the subjects that she's learning now, and I wouldn't consider moving her out of that school. At least I'm really happy with her right now. I didn't put her in a public school immediately because when we moved here, she didn't know Armenian. And that would have been a struggle for her. Coming from Saudi Arabia, she was in an American school. We had no family. There was no contact with the language, no exposure with the language other than us at home, and it just wasn't enough to keep it going. So we decided on the private school route for her right now. With my little one, I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe she'll just go to the kindergarten in the village, which I've been to and I've seen, and I am considering doing that. So I'm not really sure what I'll do about that, but that's kind of the range of schools there are. There are, yes, I do know of, I think 2 or 3. One of them is QSI, which is basically when living abroad, when living outside of the United States, if you want your child to go to an American school, there are accredited American international schools.
Yeah.
And they are solely taught in English. And a lot of people who are here with through businesses and embassy personnel or whatever, they are able to send their kids to QSI. And so there is that option that you have. But there are also a few other options that you have if you wanted to. And I could always get into that in further detail later if you want, or you can private message me and I can always help you with more detail with that. That was long, sorry.
Yeah, also go check our practical info on our website, repadarmenia.org. We have good information there so that it will help you to decide what school you're going to pick. So we have another question from Margaret Atayans. She says, realistically, do you think if I opened up a gym to teach kids breakdancing, would I be able to get people interested in it?
Okay, so in our village, one of my neighbor's sons, his name is Alex. He's probably not watching this. He's 5, and he breakdances like nobody's business. And he takes breakdancing lessons in Apovyan, which is closer to us than Yerevan is. Apovyan city is closer to us than Yerevan is. So, as much as I like to encourage folk Armenian dance, and as much as I personally like folk Armenian dance, I know that there are a lot of people here who would probably send their kids, and I think it might actually do well. I think Yerevan, and I think a big city, is probably the place to be for that. Yes. Interesting idea.
Yeah, for sure. Just try it. So, George Rita Malian. Hi there, so glad to watch you. I have in mind to repat with my wife and 2 boys, Benjamin 8 years old and Sergio 4 years. What do you think? Is their age good enough to get enrolled in the schools in Armenia? We're afraid to face some troubles. Also, if we will find jobs.
4 and 8 is a fantastic age to integrate, in my opinion, to Armenia. And I hope that you guys do come. And if you do contact us, I don't think you should worry about that at all. I do think the older the child gets, the harder sometimes it is for them to kind of integrate into the culture and into the school system. But 8 and 4, you will probably not have any trouble with that. Was there a second part to that question about work?
Also if we will find jobs.
Yes, this is the $1 million question about finding work. I think that right now there's a huge demand for jobs and for technically savvy people in Armenia. I think there's a big demand for English teachers in Armenia. Anybody who has an imaginative mind, a creative idea, a support system, a little bit of faith, and a whole lot of ambition, and I think you'll succeed. And so if you have those things, I think that combination will only take you up and will lead to eventual success. And I hope that you guys come on over and at least try it out. Come for a couple months in the summertime and see how you like it. Take the kids to summer school. Integrate into, some swimming classes or theater or plays, and see see how you feel. Give it a shot.
Yeah. So also contact our integration manager Mariana and send us your CV so that we can be in touch with you and see how we can set up an interview for you or have a recommendation for companies so that you can easily find a job in Armenia. We have also another question. Najde Saturian says, hi there. Hi Najde. I'm coming to Armenia in May with the Birthright program and I would like to ideally stay for at least a few years. Would you recommend applying for the special residency status that Armenia provides for people of Armenian ancestry?
Hi Najde. First of all, Birthright is amazing, and I'm so proud of you, and I'm so happy that you've made this decision to come to Armenia with Birthright. You are not going to regret it. I love that you're considering to stay even longer, but I definitely would encourage you to discuss this question with the Birthright folks and see how they would advise you as far as residency permits and stuff, because they don't know how it works with the Birthright volunteers. I think it also matters. I think it might matter where you're coming from as well, maybe the country of origin. So talk to the Birthright folks, but how wonderful that you're doing that program. You're going to have a blast. Oh yeah, folks out there, if you haven't done Birthright, you should. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's true. Tamar Najarian says, as a repat, giving your children Armenian citizenship, meaning the boys will be conscripted once they once they reach 18 years old.
As a repat, do you giving your okay, so I'm assuming that the question is about whether or not I would want my kids. I have a 150% yes on that question. I think that it would be a great privilege if I were a parent of a child serving in the military. In Armenia, I don't have any sons. I hope my daughters decide to join the military one day. I would support them. And I'm not just saying that because my heart, I have a nationalistic heart. It's not just because of that. I just think that it's just such a proud thing to be able to serve your country wherever that is, even if it was in the United States in the armed forces. There's just something very, just very proud. I would be so proud of that. I mean, if I could ever say that my son served in the military, if my daughter served in the military. So yes, I'm as a repat. If my child was born here, and my future children will all be born here, yes, I am in full support of that.
So yep, we can go to our questions.
So another question was about living in the village. Do your kids attend a local school or are they bused into Yerevan? So I kind of touched on this. Even though I'm living in the village, my oldest does not go to the village school because we had language issues with her, and she needed a little bit more attention. And we decided for a private school for her, and so her school is on that kind of the outskirts of Yerevan, so we don't actually go to downtown Yerevan, but yes, we do drive her every day into her school. By the way, her school is called Ohanyan School. Ohanyan Karta Hamalir, which has a joint kindergarten called Newtonic Kindergarten. It's in Avan. We're really happy with it. I like the attention that they give to education. I like the attention that they give to the kids. Yeah. It's a very loving, nurturing environment. So far, I am pleased with it. Just FYI on that. The next question was, do you do first aid and disaster training now as well? So I didn't say this as part of my bio when I started talking today, but that was my previous life in Los Angeles. I worked for the Glendale Fire Department for 7 years, and I was the public education coordinator, so that job basically required me to also do all of the first aid training, disaster training, emergency evacuation training, earthquake preparedness training for schools K through 12, also for sometimes at the community college, also for a lot of businesses, a lot of teachers teaching at the schools in the public school system there, a lot of smaller private groups would decide to get training in these fields. We called these community emergency response teams, CERT teams, which is actually a nationwide, within the U.S., it's a nationwide community emergency response team that helps in cases of an emergency. I have not done it since I left my position. I left my position in 2011 in order to go to Saudi Arabia so that we could get to Armenia eventually. And so it was a very unique job that I had. I went from working in an all-male environment to working in an all-female environment in Saudi Arabia in the university I was in. So that was a very interesting kind of dynamic that I went from and to. But unfortunately, no, I didn't keep up my training, and I haven't done it since I left. One thing that is interesting to me, though, I witnessed this being outside of the U.S., is in general first aid, disaster preparedness, emergency evacuation training, so on and so forth, is kind of underrated outside of the U.S. These are all really, they're very high on the list of priorities for a lot of businesses and a lot of public sector employees within the U.S. And in general, first response is given a high priority. I think there are the funds for it, there's the budget for it, and so there's the proper training for it, there are the jobs for it, whereas outside of the U.S. it's not really the case. And I'm not just saying Armenia specific, I think in general, maybe in Europe, I know in the Middle East it's the same thing. We once had a fire at the university that I worked in Riyadh, where we had 15,000 students who needed to evacuate, and they were just screaming and running everywhere, and nobody knew what to do, and these were all young girls. None of them had cars, and they all had drivers. They didn't know what direction to go in, and so that I was able to witness that firsthand. Whereas I'm the one that had taught them all these years what to do, and these poor girls didn't have any idea what to do, and so that was heartbreaking for me. But it was also a reality check for me, because I know that, generally speaking, the way things are outside are not necessarily the way things are in other parts of the world, and so yes, I have this training, and yes, I was very heavily involved in this. This is what I did for basically kind of like 24 hours of my day every day, but I don't know if there's really a demand for it here, and I don't know if I haven't seen a demand for this here. I mean, I would love to see this incorporated in our schools for earthquakes. I would love to see fire extinguisher safety be implemented for every single high-rise building, for every single school. I don't know if it happens. Maybe it does, and I just don't know that it does. Like, do you know where the fire extinguisher is?
In schools?
Here,
yes, we have.
Is there one? Oh, well, there's an evacuation map there. That's good.
Here we have. Back in school, we used to have classes, not the regular ones, but once in 3 months or something like that. But nothing serious. Yeah. So, like, I think it would be really great, even just for the teachers to get trained. Yeah. But I don't know if there's a demand for it. So, I don't do it now. I don't know if I would ever go back into that. I definitely do know that in my heart I'm a teacher, I'm an educator, but I don't know if I would go back into that field. Yeah. I think that. Do you consider volunteering, like in schools and? To do what? Like this? Yeah. This kind of volunteering. Training. There's so much. There's so much involved with first aid and disaster training that, unless everything is up to date in terms of your own licensures and your own certificates, it's really not something that somebody should just volunteer and do. Yeah. Because you are responsible for the safety of people. And so if I were to update all of that, maybe one day, but right now I think I'm just kind of being a mom right now, growing my tomatoes and my peppers and and with, my pets, and I'm able to relax finally. I've been working my whole life, and I'm finally in Armenia, and I don't have to do it anymore, so it's nice. We have another question from Bedros Gigian. Hi Tania, in your area outside Yerevan, if you had some side cash for investment, what would be the investment, if any? And what would be the amount? The question will be cliche soon. This is a great question. A lot of people have you had this question? Yeah, I'm sure you have. A lot of people have asked me this question. If I had some side cash for an investment, there's so many things I would want to do. Yeah. Okay, so one of those things I think would be in rentals. If I was able to, I would like to maybe purchase some apartments and rent them out, and I think that would be great, because that way I would kind of boost the tourism industry as well and leave people, with happy experiences of boarding in Armenia and stuff like that. So that might be one of the things I'd be interested. Recently, we considered maybe investing in Gyumri, because it's become such a popular place to visit for people, and it's nice to kind of take people outside of Yerevan a little bit. So don't entirely close your
shield yourself from that, because that might be an option for people as well. Small businesses, small coffee shops, small restaurants, even some apartment rentals in Gyumri might be a nice idea. And then I also think it would be great to have some English testing going on, where we can get people to come here from different countries who are interested in taking their TOEFL exam or their IELTS exams. So instead of people going to parts of Europe or parts of the Middle East to take these tests, we can get them to come here, and we invest in testing centers, and we get them to come here, spend some time here prepping for that and testing, and that might be a good investment.
Yeah. Petros says
About-
outside Yerevan rental. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You know what is
Yes.
interesting? That Nazaret Seferian, who was our first guest, he literally told the same.
Yeah.
Like, rental.
But this is something that comes from someone who's lived here for a while.
Yeah.
Because if you haven't experienced that, you don't really see the potential. But when you've been in Armenia for this long, and you're able to see the potential outside of Yerevan, and you really want to push the tourism industry outside of Yerevan so that they could see Armenia and the beauty. And that's what got me. I mean, in 1999 I was 18 years old, and I did youth corps, and I was here for about 2 months, but I was in Artsakh and with my group. And if anybody from youth corps is watching, shout out to youth corps. But that was the best experience of my life, and that changed me forever, and that's the reason why I'm here today.
Yeah.
So, but I was only in Yerevan the night we came to the airport, and literally 2 days before we left. The whole rest of the time we were outside of Yerevan, and that's what made us fall in love. So yes, I definitely encourage investing outside of Yerevan, talking to Repat Armenia about that. About maybe brainstorming some more ideas about that. But yes, it's out there. Absolutely. Go for it. As far as amount, I am not the person to ask about amounts. I'm an English teacher. Numbers, if my husband's watching, he's laughing right now. Numbers don't really make sense to me.
He is watching.
So I couldn't talk about how much to invest, but there are a lot of smart people out there who would be able to tell you that. And I think Repat Armenia could probably offer that service to you as well.
Yeah. So tell us about, how do you see, what's the engagement of diaspora with Armenia should look like?
The diaspora plays a huge role in Armenia today. I think more than it ever did before. I think that diasporans underestimate that. Yeah. Being a diasporan who's a repat now, I see how perhaps what's the word I'm looking for? Disconnected they might be with what the diaspora is doing and what's really happening. And I think that continual visits to Armenia are very important. I think that establishing a life in Armenia is very important, especially now when there's so much happening in the country and there's so much potential, and it's such as far as a parent goes, and as far as, as a mother, I think this is the best place to raise your child. So I say this to all of my diasporan friends all the time, and if you're in the diaspora, you're watching now, and you're a mom, don't disconnect yourself from that idea, because I tell you, when your kids are here, you don't have to worry about their safety. You don't have to worry about them reaching their fullest potential as a human being. You don't have to worry about preserving their childhood, because you're able to do all of that here, and you don't even have to try. And so that's something that, if I were able to kind of reach out to the diasporan community, especially to my demographic, of females, mothers, working mothers who want to finally have a chance to stay at home with your kids and you don't have to work, I definitely think that you should consider that. I have friends who come in the summers and spend their entire summer here, and their kids go to summer school here, and we hang out, and I'm just so proud of them for making that decision and for doing that, and not spending their summers in LA and in the constant, regular routine that they always have the rest of the year. And that's directly establishing a bond. Like you're creating that bond with for your kids and their country. And that is a simple thing that doesn't have to change up the rest of your life. So you can just start by doing that.
Yeah.
And if you see that that's working, then great. And you can take the next step and maybe do like a 6-month thing. So I think that as far as the diaspora goes, yeah, I think that there is a little bit of a disconnect. But I think that can only be cleared up through more visits, more investment, not just financial investment, no. Invest yourself, invest your time, invest your energy, invest your attention to what's happening in the country.
Yeah.
Especially now, we have social media, we have the news. I mean, there's just constant information that's flowing. It's not the way it used to be when I was growing up as a kid, and we always had this dream of what Armenia is actually like, but we never actually really knew what it was, what was happening. My first, I think, growing up in Glendale, California, and my first kind of real connection with Armenia was actually, unfortunately, and we're coming up on the anniversary of the earthquake. Oh. I remember waking up early in the morning in December, and it was cold, and I remember seeing on television Spitak and the ruins and the people and the tatiks, wearing their hats and crying, and it was cold and it was snowing, and I remember seeing that on ABC 7 News. And I saw that it said Armenia, and I'm Armenian, and I'm going to Armenian school, so that's my Armenian. That's the place that everybody talks about. And so when I was a kid, it was like that was my first real connection with it. But it's not that way anymore, And so now it's like you can establish as a parent a much deeper connection to your country. And I think that everybody should do that. Like, it's here. We're here. It's happening. Join us. Come. Don't be afraid of it. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. Like, come.
Tell us about the healthcare situation in Armenia.
So this is interesting because I'm learning as I'm going with the healthcare industry here. There are some things about it that I think are actually better than receiving healthcare in my history of receiving healthcare in the States. And there are some things about it that are slightly challenging, but nothing that you can't work through. I think that as far as emergency situations go, I think that there's a lot of improvement in that field. So if you ever have an emergency and somebody needs to come to your house, like I'm in the village, I haven't experienced that, thank God. But if I were to, I don't know how that would work out. I've seen an ambulance past my house in the village. They asked me where, for directions on how to find a house, and I was trying to help them. So I know that they would come. I just don't know what the response time is in that kind of a situation, and I don't know how the care would be in terms of being driven to another, healthcare facility after that. I had an emergency. I had to go to an emergency room earlier this year. My dates are off. And it all went very well. It was all very smooth. I was nervous, but I didn't have to be. Once I was there, everything was fine. I ended up going to Nairi Hospital, and I was treated there. And the treatment that I received was very professional. It was very clean. It was very good, and I had no issues. The follow-up was very good as well. I have friends who have delivered babies here who are very happy with the service that they've gotten and the experience that they had. My parents are elderly. They are semi-retired in Armenia as well. I brought them over from the U.S., so they live here 6 months out of the year, and they live back in the U.S. 6 months out of the year. And they've needed health care when they were here, and that worked out fine as well for them. We were even able to bring a nurse home and treat my mom for a small issue that she had, and that's not something you could ever do back in LA, for sure. And so... Do
you have health insurance?
I don't. I know that Repat Armenia offers that service.
4, 3, 2, 1. We're still there. Go on.
Hello, we're back.
Yeah.
In the live Q&A with me, Tania, and Rima, who's about to come and sit next to me. So if you have any other questions for us, just go ahead and type it in to the feed. Rima's kind of moderating the feed and checking it out while I babble away about my experiences.
Yeah. So this is about the investment question we have here.
Yeah, as far as the education questions go, I feel like there's a lot of people that are curious about if they were to consider moving to Armenia, that their biggest challenge might be where to send their kids to school, and I just think that really that's something that again, through a little bit of research and asking a lot of questions from the REPAT team, and even just getting on the REPAT page and doing a search through their comments about schools, you'll be able to see a lot of people with their experiences and the experiences that they've shared about which schools have worked for them, which schools that they would recommend, which schools may not recommend for whatever your child's needs may be. So I feel like that's a big concern for a lot of people, and I just wanted to kind of touch on that again. I get that question all the time. When I was trying to find the best school for my daughter to go to, I was looking into, obviously, distance is very important, so that's something to consider as well. I don't think that you would really know where to send your kid to school until you know where you're living.
Yeah. Because
that kind of does the process of elimination for a lot of other things as well. Even though in Armenia there's this wonderful thing called transportation, public transportation, and public transportation for schools is readily available, which is something that was very new to me, and I think that's fantastic. It's still, you may not want your child to be commuting for 45 minutes every morning, especially in the winter months, and then 45 minutes to an hour every night. And so that kind of will help in your decision-making process once you know where you're living. And so I think that's the first question that people should really try to figure out, is where they're going to live and where they're going to be. And then from there, everything kind of falls into place. People ask me all the time as well, about where do you do your shopping and where do you get your stuff from. Like I said, I do a lot of the shopping from the village. I also do most of my shopping I go to Apovian, the city, which is only 5 minutes away from me, and they have 3 very large supermarkets that have everything that you need. And then again, once I drive to and from Yerevan every day, and so anytime I need something, there are markets everywhere. I just pull in, I get something, and I leave. And so it's definitely something that has that hasn't been an issue for me. And then of course, when you get into the habit of buying locally, and you buy from the villagers, and you buy your produce and your milk products and your dairy products from the villagers, you're not only supporting them, which obviously but it's healthier for you. So it's nice, and it's kind of exciting for my kids, to pick the eggs from the neighbor's chicken that walks in front of my house every day, and to eat the yogurt from the cow that's just down at the neighbor's house. Yeah. And so those things are actually kind of a fun part of being a kid, and I think that, like I said, one of the advantages of raising your child here and having that opportunity, and I don't know, I think it's very exciting.
What about entertainment? What do you do as an entertainment?
I watch the sheep and the cows come and go every day. No, I'm kidding. Actually, I don't know how the days fly by, and I think everybody can relate to this. It's like once you have your own home, you have so much to do in your own home, and you have so many responsibilities, and you keep your kids busy or outdoors, and we have our animals and homework. Oh, you have your own animals? Well, my dogs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have the dogs, and and that's pretty entertaining for me. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, we come down to Yerevan when we want to go to plays and concerts, and we're going to be going to the Christmas plays in the Apovian Theater Playhouse that has just reopened, which we're very excited about, supporting them. All kinds of stuff. And then once you establish a network, that's another thing that folks, you shouldn't be nervous about. Like if you're if you're considering repatriation, but you don't have your friends and family with you, that's okay, you know, because there's so many other things that fulfill you here. And yes, we miss our friends and family, and there's nothing that can replace them ever. But it's kind of you gain so much more in other ways once you're here, that you really don't have the time to think about them or to long for them, because it just flies by, and there's so many other things that are filling your heart and filling your soul here, that you feel like you do have that support, you feel like you do have that family. So even though you don't see them, it's okay. Like, people tell me that all the time, I can't leave my parents, or I can't leave my siblings to come here, and I understand that, but it's also you're gonna gain that tenfold with the network that you have here, and with the family that you have here, and the friends that I have here. You know, God bless them all, but like, they're just so wonderful, and they're people that weren't around the first 30 years of my life, and are gonna be around for I'm gonna live to 100 until I'm 100. So the next 7 years of my life, you guys are sticking around, and you're gonna have that once you become a repat, because it binds you. This place binds you. It connects you. It brings you closer together, and that's something that you could never have when you're away. We all have that in common here, and it's like a magnet. It just pulls you. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about being away from friends and family.
Did you have friends here before you moved?
I did know people who had moved here. Yes, I did have friends who moved here. Didn't have a lot of family, no. Nobody, pretty much. My husband had some family here, who we loved and cared for very deeply, and we had kind of distant relations with, but of course they're a bigger part of our life now. But no, I mean, it was kind of establishing a new life once you're here, and it's, I don't know, I think it's kind of adds to the interesting part of your timeline on Earth, doesn't it? Kind of makes it part of your story, and it becomes interesting. So it's nice to be able to share that kind of a story with your kids or your future grandkids, and that was a big part about the decision that we made about buying a house, and not buying a house, but building the house. It wasn't just for us, I wanted my family and my friends abroad to know that there was always something to ground them here, and it didn't just have to be an apartment or a hotel for a 10-day stay. Like, it could always just be a place for them anytime they wanted to. They could always have Haraç and Tania's place, and that was something that was very important to me. So it's not just for our family, but our extended family as well, and our extended friends that we have all over the world, that trying to use that magnet force and bring them closer together as well. So
Karen Muradian says, I'm very proud of you to take this late excellent example.
Thank you, Karen.
Join us, Karen.
Yeah, join us. Thank you very much. A lot of people say that, and they say how proud they are of what we've done, and it. Thank you so much for saying that, because it was tough initially. It was, especially in the transition years that we had in the Middle East before coming here, because that was a kind of a lonely time for us as well. But we always had that goal of coming to Armenia, and that kind of kept us going the entire time. And everybody would ask me, how are you living there? How are you covering your hair and wearing that black abaya? How is it that you can live there and watch the inhumanity and whatever and this and that? But it was like the goal of having a home here, that goal of raising my kids here, pushed us through all of that. And I would do it again. Absolutely. If this is what the end result is going to be, I would absolutely do it again. And then some people are like, well, don't you think that the sacrifice that you've made of moving to Armenia? I'm like, what are you talking about? What sacrifice, folks? Are you kidding me? You're sacrificing your life away. Like, I want you to know how fulfilled you will be by making the decision to come here, or to make any exciting decision to do something new. Let's say it's not, the land doesn't draw you, which I hope it does, but if it doesn't, let's say it doesn't. Any decision to take yourself out of what you are in and into something new is an exciting one, and it's something that will fulfill you regardless of where it is or what you do. And so there is no sacrifice in making this kind of a leap. It's called a leap of faith for a reason. So I don't know. That's that's kind of where we're at. And thank you for having us. Thank you for having me here. Thanks to Repat Armenia for everything that you guys do.
Thank you
for having this huge resource for us that I know that wasn't around. I don't know, if not even 5 years ago.
We're 6 years.
6 years going, yeah. So I think it's very, very helpful to have you guys here to help, and especially with the new insurance offers that you guys have to help people who are here as far as schooling, education goes. A lot of the resources that you offer in terms of residency permits and citizenship, and these are all things that like weren't around before, and you had to run around to try to get information for. Now you don't have to do that. Now you can help with that, which is huge, especially for somebody who the language is an issue. You know.
Let's talk about language issue.
So I think that was probably and is probably my biggest challenge. My native language is Armenian, is English. I mean, I know Armenian. I was born and raised into an Armenian family, and I spoke Armenian at home. But my English is so much stronger, and I was, educated in English, obviously, and my brain works in English. So that has been a challenge for me. I'm not gonna lie. But one good thing that's come out of it is. I've been able to kind of spruce up my Armenian skills, and second grade and third grade Armenian homework has helped me. So the homework that I have to do with my daughter has obviously helped me with my Armenian skills, and it's definitely not anywhere near hers. She's a far better reader than I am, and she writes better than I do now, but that was an issue for me. But it's not anything that you can't overcome. And so if I just had the time to take a class, I know there are classes offered. I just don't have the time for it, but I know that I could. And I know that over the years, through time, it's going to get better and better. But people are open to it, and people are very friendly about it. I always ask them to speak slower. I always do that over and over again. And so that helps too. And there's obviously a contrast in the life that you've lived and the life that locals have lived, and there's a culture clash between that as well that kind of needs a little bit of time to get past. But again, that's nothing that you can't overcome, and that's nothing that can't be dealt with time. And so again, having the support and the network of friends that you have kind of helps you get through those challenges, and it just makes you into a stronger person, of course. I think.
What is about preserving Armenian identity in Armenia? Is that a question for you?
I think that right now there's a lot of globalization taking place, and it is challenging, I think, for some to try to keep the Armenian identity alive. I'm sad to see that that's even happening in Armenia. I mean, I wanted my children to be very close to their Armenian identity in a way that I didn't have when I was a kid. Like, I always had to fight and to explain who I was and where I came from and the language that I spoke and the family that the family traditions that I have, and why do we celebrate Christmas in January, and why do you think about your grandparents, or what, all these other holidays. But I think that with time, I think we're going to overcome this trend, which I think that's what it is. I think it's just this trend. And once people realize that it's not all that interesting to have all of these globalized holidays here, that it's much more interesting to keep the cool ones that we have, like Vartanans, like Terendes, like Vartavar, and so on and so forth, Barek and Tan. I mean, there's so many cool holidays and with cool stories that we have for our kids to continue the traditions of. I think that eventually we'll go over it. And I think the important thing as a parent is to just instill the importance of these traditions in our kids from a young age, so that they know how important it is to continue them. we had in our village, there were some kids that were dressed up for Halloween, and I thought it was ridiculous. And here I was outside of the city center experiencing that. But it was short-lived. And I think once they realized how silly they were and how kind of funny it was, actually they ended up changing out of it. And then, it was just a normal, regular day after that. So preserving identity anywhere you are is difficult. Society is kind of homogenizing itself, it seems like. Globalization is taking its toll. One of the reasons I wanted to live outside of the city was to be able to still have some of those things and keep them sacred. But I'm also kind of fighting the battles that I can win.
The reason I'm asking this question is because today we had a conversation about Armenian identity in the diaspora and what is Armenian identity. So identity is culture, heritage, traditions, etc. And some of the repats told me that they don't really practice their culture here. Like their traditions, they're more laid back, and if they go, let's say, to church every Sunday back in diaspora,
they don't do that here.
They don't do that here. They're just living their life without anything.
Well, I can't necessarily disagree with that entirely.
Yeah.
I think that maybe I want to believe that you're battling less to preserve identity here, but there you still are in certain aspects, like what I spoke about previously. But yeah, I think you are able to maybe bypass some of those things, but I think that it's also a result of the fast-paced kind of life that everybody's living now, and I think that if we all had time to really sit down and think about how important those things are, I think that we would keep them going. The same way that we give importance to some of these international holidays and we celebrate them here, I think if we realized how important it was to preserve our own identity here, like the church services on Sundays. Like we try to continue those traditions within our own family here, and I think that it's a personal choice. Identity is a personal choice, and it's a personal explanation, and nobody can say or do anything about that. But I think if we did have a chance to really sit back and kind of see ourselves from the outside, we may want to consider changing that, perhaps. I don't know.
So our Karen Muradian says, so true, I totally agree. I want to move, but I need more stability here before I can move there.
Yeah, and I totally understand that. I mean, that's why we did the little kind of detour in the Middle East, so that we could secure ourselves as well. And I think that everybody should consider making the move, but in a smart way, so that you do find success after the move. You don't want to make this change in your life and then not have a happy ending after that. Like, you do want to be able to have success and secure yourself here, and not, first and foremost, you want to have a place to live, because rent is expensive, and when you compare it to what salary somebody might make, it might be somewhat of a challenge to try to keep up with both. And so that would be something that my personal advice would be to try to secure that first and foremost. Like, try to get a place to live and secure that for yourself, for your family, and then everything else will kind of fall into place after that. And that's where the stability kind of comes in as well. But it is a drastic change, and it is a big decision. And yeah, I totally hear you.
Yeah. We have the same question from Eileen. She says, are there good English curriculum schools accredited worldwide?
Yeah, so I answered that earlier with QSI, which is accredited worldwide. It's an American international school in Armenia. I know that it is very expensive as well, and you can contact them to find out more about that. But I know that if that's what you want, that's there for you. But depending on what you want, you might be able to find some other schools that are just as good, that are also IB programs,
Yeah.
that are accredited worldwide, but they may not necessarily have a full English curriculum. So there are other things out there, and I can get a little bit more specific if you want. You can contact me personally on Facebook. I've been tagged, or you can contact Repat Armenia for a list of what those schools might be. But I know that there's also a Cambridge International School here, which is affiliated with the British International School System. And I know that you can get that, what you're looking for an English curriculum, you can get it there as well.
Yeah, I guess this is it. It's 8 p.m. We don't have more questions.
We made it to 8.
Yep.
8:03.
So thank you everyone for watching, for asking your questions. Stay tuned. Follow our pages, follow our website, contact us whenever you need it, whatever you need to know about Armenia, about life in Armenia. We will guide you through your repatriation process from start to an end.
And if there's anything you think we could have done better today, please let us know. If there's anything that we could have done differently, please let us know. But we're happy that you wrote up all your questions and were interested, and that you were watching. And so hopefully we can all meet in person one day.
Yeah. Have a great week. Bye-bye.